Hi, welcome back. I'm going to keep talking about false memory, but I want to flag something that happened in the last video that's important. Most of you got the word sweet and the word angry, even though they weren't there. Why is that? Well, the reason is because our brain, our memory is associative. We remember things by associating them with other things. That allows you to be tricked. And you're probably tricked this way every single solitary day. If you watch a commercial on television, they use this trick, and it's obvious. I'm sure you figured this out yourself, which is that they have a product, a car, for instance, and these sexy couple jumps in the car and has wonderful experiences for a minute or however long a commercial lasts. And you associate the car with that. Same thing, beverages, health food, whatever it happens to be, they build up associations with it so that you'll file that product under the place in your brain that has these positive associations. Right now, there's a presidential candidate, and she has been being sued and having legal action taken against her for about at least 15 years, maybe 20, by certain groups that just exist to do that. Judicial Watch is the name of one of them. And just the fact that that happens all the time pollutes our brains, because when we think of her, one of the things that we think of is, well, she's getting legal action taken against her all the time. And no person gets legal action taken against them unless they've done something wrong. I mean, well, clearly there's innocent people that get legal action taken against them. But if somebody gets legal action taken against them over and over and over, it's hard to imagine that they aren't doing something wrong, isn't it? So that's a propaganda technique. So advertising and propaganda do basically the same thing to you. And I'm going to show you later that you do the same thing to yourself. It's a set of very well-known tricks that in some cases have been known since Greek times. Aristotle wrote about them. The reason it's so important to understand about memory is that you can see that people can have the ability to shape your experience of yourself in your past and pollute it, change it. I'm going to keep beating you over the head with this and show you another video that brings this point home. I have fabulous actors in it. You can't miss it, actually. You wouldn't want to miss it because it's Alan Alda from MASH and Dan Schachner, who is the author of The Seven Sins of Memory. And they go through what we've been talking about in a fun and interesting way. So I'm going to show you the video now.
What I didn't know one pleasant morning while strolling with Dan Schachter was that in collaboration with my scheming producers, he was setting me up for a test of my memory.
Now we're just going to witness a simple picnic scene. We want you to pay attention to how often either of the folks gets up and down. So whenever someone gets up and down, you just make a mental note of it.
Okay. I knew Dan Schachter to be a noted memory researcher, but this picnic was a surprise.
Would you like some pasta?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I love to watch people eat. Although Dan had told me to keep track of how many times the picnickers stood up, I suspected there was more to this little scene than that. But what? I wasn't to find out for another 2 days that the picnic was part of a carefully choreographed attempt to implant false memories into my brain, to make me remember as real things I'd never seen. At At the time, it was like trying to keep track of a very bad play while sitting uncomfortably close to the author.
Ooh, it's cold. There's nothing on.
After 10 bewildering minutes, the picnic mercifully came to an end. Very nice.
Well done.
Very nice.
Well, it could use a little more high drama here and there.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't lack for slowness. It's good. At this point, I was politely asked to leave.
Quick, starting with R.
The scene was played over for a stills photographer. But this time it included things that had never happened while I was there.
Ignore the sun.
Which means I also missed Dan Schachter's basic premise, that memories are malleable.
One of the things that we know about memory is that it's not fixed at the original experience we have. The way we talk about the event later, the way we think about it, can affect, improve, or sometimes change our memories, and photographs are one everyday source of reviewing past experiences that may have a potent effect on memory, and we're interested in exactly what that effect is.
Great, thanks.
I want you to look at each of these for about 10, 20
2 days later, I was in Dan Schachter's office at Harvard University looking at photographs.
Get cut out, is it well-centered? For each photo, I'm going to ask you for a 1 to 5 rating.
Oh, see, part of me is trying to figure out what this is really a test of. I'd have to say, you know, 4 to 4.5.
Okay,
You know,
it's
a nicely composed picture. I didn't believe this rating ploy for a minute, but I graciously played along, even when I knew the photos were of things I hadn't seen. I take it you don't want me to mention whether or not this was a picture of something that happened or not, because this never happened.
Right, we're not concerned with that right now. We're just concerned with your...
Showing you how smart I am. Right. In all, I looked at about 20 photographs. Finally, the moment I'd been anticipating.
Fishing pole.
The test. No. The question is, did I see these things at the picnic or not?
Umbrella.
No umbrella, no.
Potato chips.
No, the potato chips were in the picture. Well, I remember them in the picture, but I don't remember them on the site.
Okay, so you're going to call...
I was doing fine until...
nail file.
Yes, I think I remember her filing her nails, although the picture is also vivid in my mind. But I think I remember her filing her nails, too.
Kite.
No kite. No, there was no kite. There was a kite in the picture, but that's it.
Okay. A man's cap.
Dan was obviously trying to confuse my memory of things I'd seen for real. I think he wore a cap. With things I'd only seen in the photographs. Well, see... I think he was wearing a cap in the photographs, and I remember when I looked at the photograph, there's something wrong with this picture. I don't think he wore a cap,
Okay,
no.
so a bottle of water?
Yes, there was a bottle of water. Uh-oh, this would come back to haunt me.
Folding chairs?
No.
No, no way. Pasta?
Yes. You think I could forget pasta? Come on.
It's over.
That's it?
That's it. It's out of your
So it
system.
had nothing to do with how many times they stood up.
Well, that was just to get you to pay attention to what was going on in front of you.
That's why I paid attention to everything else. Now, what I'm really interested to know is, were you able to place in my memory things that never occurred in real life?
Yes.
By using the photographs? You did?
We
You
did. Even though we told you, you knew what the game was.
Yeah.
You knew that some of the things that we were showing you in the photographs had never happened. Despite that,
This is horrible.
one was the nail file.
Yeah.
That was only in the photo.
You know, when I first saw the nail file, there was this little uncertainty. Is that real or isn't it? And then a second later, I was sure I had seen it. In the final tally, of 8 things that appeared in the pictures only, I wrongly remembered 2 as having been at the picnic, the nail file and the bottle of water. The photographs had somehow lodged in my brain right along with my memory of the picnic itself, and I couldn't tell which was which. To understand how this can happen, we have to first understand where in the brain memory is located. Is it possible to point to some place on the brain and say that's where memory is?
Well, there's no one place. There's no one place I can point and say, there's your memory for high school graduation, and there's your memory for having eaten breakfast yesterday. Instead of being in one place, many of us believe that the memory is kind of scattered in different parts of the brain.
The idea is that memory consists of all the bits and pieces of an experience. the sights, the sounds, the emotions, with each fragment stored in areas of the brain responsible for handling that particular sensation. So sounds are stored in the auditory cortex, sights in the visual cortex, and so on. Keeping track of what's where is a region of the brain called the hippocampus, which functions as a sort of index for our memories. Recalling an event means reassembling all those bits and pieces. It's not like replaying a videotape. It's more like shaking a kaleidoscope. With every shake, every recall, the pieces fall together anew, sometimes, as in my memory of the picnic, including bits that don't quite belong.
Okay, so here's the first list.
Dan Schachter recently wondered if he could tell the difference between real and false memories by peering into the brain while it was remembering.
Coarse, uneven.
12 people heard word lists like these, and they had to remember as many of the words as they could. Writer, gravel. What's sneaky about the lists is that while they're each united by a theme, they don't contain the most obvious word.
Bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, slumber, snore, nap, peace, yawn, drowsy.
Sleep, doze, bed. There, right off the bat, I said sleep. But sleep wasn't on the list. Again, I'd been given a false memory. Bed. The 12 experimental subjects all got PET scans while doing this test. Recalling both true and false memories mostly involved the same bits of brain, especially the hippocampus, the index region. But while the true memory lit up the auditory cortex, the false memory didn't. So even though the subjects reported hearing the words that weren't there, their brains appear to contain no trace of the sounds of the words. So in a way, you really can look inside somebody's brain and tell whether they're having a true memory or a false memory under certain conditions.
Under certain conditions, within this one experimental paradigm in a group of 12 people, we were able to see some differences between true and false recognition.
Dan Schachter emphasizes there's a long way to go before this first faint trace of a false memory can be turned into a practical test that could be used, for instance, in a courtroom. Meanwhile, discovering how easily my memory can be tricked was less than enough for me. What I think that this really brings home to me is it's very important to say not, this is what happened, but it seems to me that I remember this is what happened.
I think that's a very important lesson.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? There's a couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention about that. We can talk about them more later. One of them is that Alan Alda knew that he was trying to plant false memories in him. Dan Schachter was trying to plant false memories. But even so, he did it. He planted false memories in Alan Alda. The trick is that's the way our brain works. We have to understand that our brain has to do its job. It's a mechanical thing to organize the world in a way that makes sense to us, that's useful to us. The other thing that I think is really important is how he said at the end, instead of saying, this happened, it seems to me that I recall this happened is a more accurate way of saying it. Well, what does that imply for our whole knowledge of the world? I'll give you an answer now and we can talk about it more later. The answer is that science has known that this is an issue for a long, long time. Richard Feynman said that science is a way of not fooling ourselves. We have to develop techniques to work with the actual way our bodies and brains function. So I'm going to tell you later about how to do that. But I want to show you more of how your brain does things to you that make it so that you're not perceiving the world in the way you expect that you are. And the ones that are very important is our biases. And there's a lot of different kinds of biases, but I'm going to get into memory biases first, and I'm going to show you how your brain does things. And so that's what the next thing is. It's about illusions.